Aquatica. What is there left to say? Except that it provides a really interesting case study. For all of its controversies, for all of its issues, for all of its shortcomings, we get a really interesting case study on design and when to apply what. Now, specifically, before we go, I want to preface this. I am not throwing shade at the development team for Aquatica. And I'm not trying to imply that my designs are superior to theirs. I'm simply expressing two different paths you can take. Starting off, the two different paths I'm referring to are intentional design or algorithmic design. Now, intentional design means you specifically tailor the elements to a specific creature, hence the name. Algorithmic would be if you said, you come up with a pattern and then you're like, okay, so what if X creature had X pattern? And Ark Survival Evolved, believe it or not, really likes to do this one. You see it with the corrupted creatures, both in Genesis Part 1 or 2 and Extinction of the Ark series, where the corrupted creatures are either what if X was corrupted, and in Extinction this would be the vines and the glowy purple pattern. In Genesis Part 2, this would be the purple with spots pattern. However, I believe that in Aquatica, their algorithmic design, which is to give all abyssal creatures, gills and glowing patterns, and if they have fur or feathers, to make it more spread out and patchy, I really think that was the wrong call here. Fans really did not trust Aquatica. Thanks, Snail. So, unfortunately, I think the algorithmic design that they used for their creatures, now granted, I don't know if it has a lore reason to it, it makes it feel, it just adds to that feeling that Aquatica did not have enough time to develop. So, here's where intentional design would come in. Granted, I don't know how many abyssal variants of normal creatures there are. From what I counted were 6, and I decided to focus on the 3. But if there were a limited number of creatures, maybe it was possible to do just a little bit more with the abyssal concept. Now, if we're assuming that these creatures adapted or evolved to survive in the watery environment, and were not just mutated by element or whatever, then I think we should see more adaptations that are specifically designed to help them. Thus, it would be less of a cosmetic change and more of a functional one. And I'll focus on the Thylacoleo first when explaining this. The Thylacoleo has webbed paws, as indicated by the lines there, and it also has larger eyes. Now, there were 2 directions I considered taking for this. Either make it like the cave fish, that just because they live their whole lives in some place with absolutely no light, they don't need eyes. Or we go the opposite direction and make these guys more owl-like. Eyes that are designed to absorb a ton of light. I decided on the light absorption route for these guys, and if we were to say that there was going to be some sort of, this is an algorithmic change for the most part, but let's say they had some extra time and could mess around with some mechanics. I think it'd be really cool if these abyssal creatures were aggressive towards light, similar to seekers from Aberration. Thus, I decided to give all of them larger eyes. Now, their mutated pattern is a cosmetic change. It is the base pattern of the Thylacoleo, or, the other dinos. But the Thylacoleo specifically, it is their base stripes, and then I connected said stripes with more stripes. It also doesn't have ears here. That was a purely cosmetic choice, but it has fins instead. Next, we move on to the Procoptodon. And here's where you can really see the practicality of this creature if it were, evolved to survive where it did. I often, for some reason, associate the Procoptodon with skis when it's like jumping around. So I specifically decided to work with that. So I decided, okay, what if its paws, when it's bouncing around, they're normal, but what if they have fins, like a swimmer's fins? Thus, you would see that whenever it's, attacking, or if it's swimming, this guy has fins on its paws. And lastly, I decided to give it a tadpole tail for the same swimming benefit reason. Next, you have the Stegosaurus. Now, I don't know that Stegosaurus's plates were heavy, but I kind of figured I'd go ahead and swap them to something lighter for their adapted life to living in the water. This specific stego is designed based on the leatherback sea turtle. It still has some plates on, as you can see, but their size is reduced and they look more like fins. So I wanted these guys to remain mobile, or theoretically they'd still have an easy time moving around even with a shell on their back. So I left their tail disconnected from their shell, but they still have that shell to defend them. I also swapped out the standard beak for a leatherback sea turtle beak. And it's also where it gets its speckled pattern from. So